Hi, so I thought I would just conclude my adaptation series by talking about Pride and Prejudice adaptations because there's like a cajillion of them. I mean, in general, pretty much any chick flick that has a enemies to lovers kind of story, like You've Got Mail or 27 Dresses, anything like that, definitely gets its start and heart from Pride and Prejudice, in my opinion. But I'm talking more about straight, clean cut, clear adaptations. So, well, one is a little questionable. So there's 6, and I'm just going to talk about them really briefly. They are the BBC version, is what I call it, which is the version with Colin Firth. A lot of people think that this is like the be-end, end-all adaptation. It's definitely a pretty true one. It's very reserved and true. It's longer. It's a mini-series, so they can really go into the stories. But honestly, it's not my favorite. I enjoy it, but I don't know if it's because I saw other ones first. And I own it, and I do watch it, but it's not necessarily the one I gravitate to, and honestly I think that's mostly because of how long it is. Next is the, what I call Keira Knightley version, which is the first one I saw when it comes to like a strict Pride and Prejudice adaptation, and I enjoy this. I'm not Keira Knightley's biggest fan, and I know a lot of people have issues with Matthew Macfadyen, but I actually like him, and I thought she did a decent job with Lizzie Bennet. Mostly I like this movie for the other characters. I like Bingley, like the actors that play Bingley and Jane and Mrs. Bennet and Mr. Bennet. I just think that it has this very nice feel to it, and it's a very accessible version of Pride and Prejudice for me. I think the BBC version might be a little intimidating for some people, but this version is a lot more welcoming and current, even though it's a true period drama. Next are some contemporary versions. So the first is Bridget Jones's Diary, which is also a book. I read the book, but I remember nothing. But I have seen the movie, and I own it. And Colin Firth plays Mr. Darcy again. This is a nice contemporary version. It modernizes it really well. It has British humor. I'm not the biggest fan of Renee Zellweger, but she doesn't bother me too much, and I definitely think Colin Firth does a really good job. Grant does a really good job as well. So it's an interesting contemporary retelling, and I don't think it's offensive or anything just because there's definitely things in it that Jane Austen wouldn't approve of, but Jane Austen didn't live now. She lived 200 years ago, so of course she wouldn't agree. Next is Bride and Prejudice, and this is one that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, and it was directed by the same woman, I'm sorry, her name escapes me, who did Bent It Like Beckham, and my understanding is that she wanted to do a Pride and Prejudice adaptation that introduced people to Bollywood style films. So Mr. Darcy is an American businessman, and Lizzie is an Indian girl from India. So he goes to India with his friend, who's I'm pretty sure it's Naveen Andrews from Lost and Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. I'll write here if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. He goes there with his friend to see him get married, or no, he has to go to like for a wedding, but he's not getting married because that's the Mr. Bingley of this story, and so there's not as many sisters, but there's some. The woman that plays Lizzie, she's a very famous Bollywood actress, but because I don't know that much about Bollywood, I don't know, but I'm understanding she's very famous. She's very beautiful. It's an English-speaking film, so it's not like you need subtitles or anything, but it has the dance and the beauty and the color and the music of a Bollywood film. It's amazing. My stepdad actually really likes this movie. He really likes the Bollywood style of things. Like, he really likes the color explosion of Indian culture and their dance style and their singing and everything. And the music in this movie is just amazing. I love it, and I think it's perfect, and it is a really accessible adaptation, and it's a nice blend of those worlds. Honestly, I think even if you don't like traditional musicals, you would probably like this one. Everyone is just so funny and like, and it is modern, obviously. So, but because of the Indian culture in it, it almost has this feel like it's historical, because you have this culture that is its own culture but has been strongly influenced by the English like occupation for so long, which blends really well with what Jane Austen was writing and doing. It's a really interesting, different version, and like I said, I really like it, and a lot of people don't talk about it. Next, I figured I'd talk about it is Lost in Austen, which was like a little mini series from the UK, and it's where a young woman, she like loves Austen and loves Darcy and stuff, and then she ends up walking, I think it's through like a cupboard or something, and ends up in Pride and Prejudice, and Lizzie ends up in our world. So you get to see Lizzie kind of dealing with life here, and then she is in this story and she ends up changing things a lot, like, and then she's like, oh no, what's this story? It's just a fun, different version, and part of you when you're watching it is like, no, you can't ruin the source material like this, but the way they do it is really cute and really fun, and the playing with the characters and everything is really enjoyable in my opinion. And the last, because I can't make a YouTube video and not talk about the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. So I was kind of late to the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, but when I found it, fell in love. Like literally for hours was just watching the backlog of episodes. This is a really accessible version. You can watch just a few episodes at a time. It really condenses the material down, but it's obviously a contemporary version, and it makes you feel like you are friends with Lizzie Bennet, because even though you know it's an act, like being acted and everything, what they do with it, you really feel like this girl is just posting her life and vlogging for you. And even though you know what's gonna happen, like if you've seen a Pride and Prejudice film or if you've read the books, you obviously know things that are happening, but you're so interested to see how they're going to be portrayed in like her diaries. Like, so how is Mr. Collins going to show up, and who is he, and oh, and then who's Mr. Darcy, and then you meet Mr. Darcy, and then you meet Georgie, and you're like, oh, is Catherine de Bourgh going to be in here, and how is she going to show up? And it's just a really interesting and compelling story, and the actress that plays Lizzie does an amazing job. Also the actress that plays Charlotte, I think they're both really good. And then I never was a big fan of Lydia, but this Lydia I really enjoy. I think she does a really good job with it. So I feel like everyone has seen the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, so yes, but it's a great introduction to this story, and if you've seen it and you like Lizzie Bennet Diaries, I definitely suggest checking out a more traditional adaptation of it and then maybe going into the book. I think the book is a little hard for some people. It's obviously a classic, it's told in a different way, but if you've seen an adaptation, it can make reading the book easier because you have a better concept of who these characters are and where the story is going to go, so you can work through the words better. So those are just my quick thoughts on some Pride and Prejudice adaptations. If you know of any other ones, or there's any that you really like, let me know down in the comments. Or if you've seen any of these, let me know what you think of them. And thanks for watching. Bye!